I think when I talk to sales reps, they're spending like not more than 25% of their time selling. 75% of their time is administrative tasks, it's customer support queries, it's entering data into systems manually, it's coordinating with teams to get data. So I think when I look at the sales rep experience from an AI native standpoint and WizCommerce standpoint, I'm saying, can I remove that 75%? Can I give a sales rep at least 50% more time to actually focus on selling and make them smarter and take away all these redundant processes from them?
So Div, we haven't met before, and it's kind of unique in this industry. I know you guys have work especially on the wholesale commerce, but I'm most interested to kind of start off with like what your personal story is. How did you get into this business? How did you start with the agency? All of that. I would love to hear where you came from. Where did you come from?
Absolutely, Justin. I actually don't. I mean, about 3 years back, I had no idea of how the wholesale and distribution work operates. But a little bit about me. So I'm an engineer by trade. I went to a university called IIT back in India, which is, I mean, comparable to like MIT in the US. Did my engineering from there and then started my career with management consulting. I used to work at Parthenon Group, where we would typical management consulting job, advising CEOs on digital transformation projects, go-to-market projects. I've worked across like 20 different countries with that firm, and then I think that was the first insight into the fact that large or older legacy firms, no matter how much intent they have to like kind of transform, it's really really hard to go through a digital transformation project. So did that for about a few years, and then actually joined Bessemer Venture Partners. It's a venture capital fund based in the US, and they're one of the earliest investors in Shopify, Toast, a lot of these industry defining companies. So that's where I would say got really interested in the fact that a software company really really revamping and bringing like a legacy sector into the new digital age. And so that kind of stayed with me at Bessemer. I was doing a lot of SaaS investments there and always had that entrepreneurial bug. And when I started looking at wholesale, I was like, this industry is like, in many ways, stuck in the 90s. Like, you still see faxes, you still see people doing data entry, getting orders on the phone, etc. And I felt like, nobody had come in and disrupted this space like it should be. So that was kind of the trigger about 3.5, 4 years back. And then I dove myself into this world, I think, and it's been a great journey ever since. Yeah.
Toast is for people that don't know what Toast is a kind of an operating system for restaurants to take payment and orders and things like that. Those guys were with me at Endeca. So when Endeca was purchased by Oracle in 2012, those twins, Dan and I don't remember the other guy's name, started Toast, which was such an amazing idea in 2012. And then other companies, I started my company, and then Jason Purcell and a bunch of Endeca guys started Salsify out of that same crew. So quite a few companies have come out of. We talk about the PayPal mafia.
Yeah, there's an Endeca.
This is the Endeca mafia. It's a smaller group, smaller and less lucrative group. That's cool that you did that.
Yeah, I think Toast is one of my inspirations, and when I was even starting, I think Toast was one of my early inspirations into how this needs to kind of work.
The Fredette twins, I think, is their last name. That's pretty interesting. What has surprised you the most as you've worked in wholesale over the last couple of years? What are the things that have surprised you the most about that business?
I think from where I see it, number one, I think I was really surprised by how much of this world is still very very manual, right? Like. You still hear a lot of people talking about getting faxes, people calling in to place orders, people calling in all the time to like get information. So a lot of the information asymmetry and how difficult it is for customers, for reps, and for everybody to get that information has been very surprising to me. I think one of the other learnings for me has been like, it's a very, very relationship driven industry. So I think a lot of time technology people just kind of enter through a wave of disruption. Reps shouldn't exist, this shouldn't exist, everything should just happen automatically. I think all of that doesn't really work. Like it's relationship is at the very core of how this industry operates, and I think that was a good learning, and how we thought about our product and how our approach and go to market has been very centered around the fact that there is a relationship element here, and we need to give people superpowers to like build upon that relationship rather than trying to disrupt that relationship in any way. I would say that was the other one. And I think the third one, Jason, for me, and this is, I think, more recent, is I think there's a lot of, as these companies are trying to go through this, transformation, e-commerce is becoming front and center. I'm realizing that there are a lot of talent gaps in distribution, and there are key talent groups that you need today to like really transform, which are kind of absent, or very hard to recruit for, especially around digital marketing, etc., because these are not muscles that distributors kind of have built in the past, given that it's always been very sales driven as an industry. So I think the challenge of recruiting, etc., has been interesting to sort of observe, and not something I intuitively sort of grasped when I first started.
I think those are amazing, actually. Definitely want to dig into a couple of them. I think the relationship centered one, you kind of said, it's not like these companies have built their business around the relationship, and what you said was a lot of companies try to go in and disrupt that versus working with those relationships. I think that's such a critical point for you guys to understand, but for everyone to understand. I mean, the businesses still continue as relationship building, right?
Yeah.
It's not like that was something in the past, and it's not something for the future. I think, in fact, that there's some of these businesses that, in a world of AI, where we don't know what websites are written by AI, what emails are written by AI, what texts are set by AI, what phone calls are made by AI, that the relationship, that one-to-one relationship, I think actually becomes more important and critical in the future, even more than it was in the past, which I think is fascinating. I'm interested in the talent gaps. I think that's a really observant point to make, is these talent gaps. I think there's kind of two parts of the talent gaps that I'm interested in your perspective on. One is the gaps in resources at these companies, and the second is a lack of career path for those people inside of the company.
Yeah.
What are some of the bigger gaps, like the actual skill set gaps or resources that people are missing? You mentioned digital marketing. Others that you've kind of seen, and what are kind of the implications of that?
Yeah, I think some of these are like gaps that need to be filled today, Justin, and I think some of those would be around e-commerce, digital marketing, because as I said, I think people never built these muscles, and the kind of talent you need to recruit for these particular areas, younger Gen Z, I think there's also kind of a disconnect in the kind of organizations they work for, right? And the kind of work environment they're looking for. So I think that's definitely a gap, because at least with most of the companies we work with, we feel like the marketing muscle doesn't exist. It's still very sales driven. But now, and I'm not saying sales needs to be removed, but you can augment it with the right marketing, because you do have a lot of customers shopping online with you, even if they're businesses, right? So that segmentation and reaching out with personalized messages, that all of that stuff kind of becomes important in this new age. The talent gap that I'm also very worried about, which I think we will not see today, but I think in a decade it's going to become very critical, is this whole field rep network, right? Because a lot of this, I'm not seeing younger people or new generation coming into that trade at all, right? So you have, average user on WizCommerce or average sales rep that uses our platform is, in their 40s. Some of them are in their 50s and 60s. And I think when the time comes for retirement, I'm not seeing a lot of younger people taking to that profession. And there could be many reasons for that. So I'm worried that in the long term, if that talent is not developed today, and that, that career path is not kind of set up today, like that's going to become very challenging for these companies.
In the past, how that worked was you'd have you'd be a plumber, and then you'd work for that plumber for a while, then you'd start your own plumbing company, and then you'd sell that and join the local branch of the distributor, and then you would become a regional vice president of multiple branches, and so like the path was very organic from the trades into distribution. I mean, a lot of companies, a lot of execs started that way, as actually being in the trades and then moving through. And what you said is so true, that you don't see a lot of younger generation in the trades, and then you certainly don't see them inside of distribution. I think there's also a problem. I'm curious on your perspective on that. What I'm hearing from executives, it's also like, how do we manage this new generation? Not because the generation's doing anything wrong. Every generation kind of has their quirks and their nuances.
Yeah.
But a very unfamiliar way of managing this new generation. You know, part of it's remote work, part of it's people living in the cities. Like, how do you get talent into, you know, smaller cities that a lot of these distributors actually live in?
Yeah.
What's your kind of perspective on that?
Yeah, that's definitely a hard problem. It's hard because of all of the things you said. So remote work, it's very hard to get people hire this kind of talent in the cities that you typically find distribution companies in, and also is the longevity, right? Like if I look at my customers and the people we work with, like so many of the people that we work with have been in those companies for a decade plus, 2 decades sometimes. And you just don't see that anymore, right? Like at even our company, Jason, like Justin, if somebody stays for more than 3 years, it's like a great thing, right? Like, but
Right.
the new generation just wants to switch every 2 years, and they want to explore and spend their 20s just kind of figuring out what they want to do. So it's a very different, their opinion of or how they want to build their careers is very, very different from the past. And that's why, like, a lot of companies I would talk to say, like, this is the third marketing hire I've made, right? And I'm losing this person every year, every 6 months, I have to rehire for this position, and you kind of just eventually give up. I think the good part, Justin, and the world in which we are going is you might not need as much specialized talent going forward. So if you have somebody who has a basic understanding of marketing, for example, that you can find in your region, AI is going to give everybody superpowers, right? So that's something that I'm very excited about. Just somebody who has basic understanding of your customer-based products you sell could today go and write the best marketing campaign, figure out the best segment, and do all of that through AI. So I think the world in which we're going, I think you would be able to achieve a lot more with generalist talent that you can find in your region who just has enough interest to understand your product line, your customer base. And I think that's the exciting opportunity here, and probably the remedy to the situation that everybody is facing.
Yeah, I agree. But I also think there's a lot of knowledge because you don't have that sequence of people starting in the trades and then moving through distribution. They have that kind of tribal knowledge of the products and how things work. And we're watching that knowledge leave, as baby boomers retire, we're watching that knowledge kind of vacate the company. And I just think it's really wise for companies to try to capture some of that knowledge from either early retired people that are already retired, and start capturing that from them, or people that are about to retire. Yeah. You talked about these manual processes. I think it's still funny that fax machines are actually still a thing.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. And by the way, for anybody listening that thinks that's ridiculous, it's not ridiculous. Fax machines are very much a part of wholesale distribution, and medical distribution. Food service still has it. I mean, it's kind of everywhere that has it. Yeah. But these manual processes that you talked about, what's some of the results or the effects of having these manual things inside the company?
I think Justin, let's start from like the macro, right? Like the macro has been very challenging overall, and there might be some distribution categories which are still doing well, but across the board there's been margin pressure, right? The COVID, post-COVID, I mean, inflation was very high. Then you have the whole tariff equation sort of complicating things for people. And no matter what people don't want to transfer all the cost to the end consumer or the end buyer. So a lot of these companies are eating up these raising like logistics cost and just raw material source cost. So there has been margin pressure, which means that everybody has to become like operationally very, very good, right, to be able to survive in that world. And a lot of and we work with businesses of all types, Justin, and some of these are like home decor businesses where you could say that every design is unique. So as a wholesaler, I might have unique things, but even in industries where there's a lot of design variation and you could potentially have that as your moat, eventually the price at which you sell becomes really important. So the buyer is still looking for the best option at the cheapest price. And if you now translate that to food service or slightly more commoditized category, the margin pressure there is even worse.
Right.
Like it's at least in home decor, it's a luxury category. The buyer doesn't care sometimes. The person buying like $10 million house doesn't care about how much a sofa costs. But like translating that to when we work with companies in food distribution, etc., the margin pressures there are even more real and critical. So I think that's where I would focus on, like all of these manual processes that you kind of build in your companies, because these are all impacting your bottom line, right? If you have a team of people, and this is literally what happens, right? I have customers where there are teams of like 10 people just sitting and doing data entry. So they're getting orders from phone calls or PDFs, and somebody is just sitting and entering that into an ERP. Now 10 people at even $30 an hour, 8 hours a day, that's a lot of cost like that you've sort of built up, which is not really adding to your customer experience. It's actually slowing down your customer experience. It's actually not really improving it, right? So I think that's the effect of number one, having all of these manual processes, is that you really are not optimizing your margins, and you are also not optimizing for your customer experience. Even if you ask any wholesaler or distributor, like what is your USP, I think more often than not you will hear we provide the best customer service. And then if you peel back that onion and you ask them, okay, so what's your first response time? How quickly are you resolving queries? Typically, people will, like the best companies will tell you, our goal is to respond in the first 3 hours if we get a query. In today's time, that's really not good customer experience. As a consumer, if I have to wait 3 hours to get a simple email answer, I mean, I would probably go on Twitter and LinkedIn and just complain about it all the time, right? So the benchmarks that we are holding ourselves to are really not benchmarks that as a consumer we are okay with. And so you have all this extra cost that you've layered on, plus this manual sort of processes is also leading to a poorer customer experience, which you think is your USP and which really differentiates a lot of these companies. So I think for me, like those are the two most important things when I think about manual processes and where to also spend time automating.
Yeah, you mentioned USP a couple of times, just making sure everybody knows that's the unique selling proposition is what that typically means. Where so as you're looking for some of these manual processes, like where do you start? Like how do you identify them, and then what do you do about that? Like what do you do about that, even if you've identified them?
Yeah, I think the way the good news is that a lot of these processes were very hard to automate, maybe even 3-4 years back, Justin, and now with AI and this intelligence, like you can actually automate them. And that's one of the things that we try to do here. But the way I try to classify problems, and I always, whenever I talk to my customers, I kind of have this framework, like look at the frequency of use case, like how frequently is this manual process getting repeated? And at least today, look at the accuracy that you need for this process. And sort of try and classify problems that way, because if you need like so like raising a purchase order, you need to be very accurate, otherwise you're gonna place it with the wrong vendor or pay a lot higher than you're supposed to. I think those processes I would still have a manual intervention in, but processes where it's very straightforward, it's a very high frequency of use case, I would pick those problems first, essentially. And that's kind of the framework I use internally for my company as well, and I always recommend customers to use.
When you do customer experience journey mapping, often you're kind of talking about the customer journey path and the moments that matter and the emotional state of the customer, which is great. But in that process, you talk about kind of front of the house systems and back of the house systems, and in that you're starting to work through, okay, so when this customer emails us, this is what it goes through when they email us. It goes into a queue. It's got to be assigned to someone. They pick it up, and you can, explain time frames. And often you can identify quite a few just inefficiencies that are directly related to how customers are interacting with us. And a lot of executives love improving the customer journey, right? They can get behind improving the customer journey. They often struggle with getting behind things like they're not going to get behind AI for AI's sake or e-commerce for e-commerce sake, but they will get behind it if they say, hey, here's a customer flaw that we have, a problem. Here's how we're going to improve it. This is what the result will be. I just think that's a great way. You mentioned AI a couple times. What do you see today AI's role inside of wholesale distribution?
I think it spans across, Justin. Like, you can see a lot of good use cases on the front end, as you said, on the customer experience, on the sales rep experience, and there's plenty of use case on the back office also, right? Which is where I think order entry and some of the things we spoke about. But I think just to start with, I think I would, for example, on the sales rep side, I mean, these guys are just, I mean, they just don't, there's so much data in wholesale, and it's the one thing that I love about this space, distribution wholesale, is you have this repeat customer behavior, you have a lot of longevity of data of that customer's behavior, previous purchases. But if you look at how people use them, they're not really usable, right? You can send your sales reps as many Excel reports, but that doesn't make that data usable for them, because that's just not how, especially people in sales, even in tech sales, people are not wired to look at that many dashboards, and that's just not how they're wired, right? So I think there's a lot of AI can play a huge role in helping make these reps more productive. Basically the way I look at it, like, who do I target, when do I target them, and what do I target them with? So these three questions you can very strategically see, like, AI helping the rep, place those pieces together. So that would be sort of the role on the sales side of it. On the customer side of it, again, I think one of the things that you spoke about, and we just kind of spoke about, is the customer experience. What happens if I have a problem? What happens if I have a question? A lot of customers or buyers are also getting younger, and they don't want to wait for the rep to come, so they want a lot more self-service. So there's a lot of application on the customer side, and just getting them answers quickly, helping them resolve their queries quickly, and sort of just improving their overall buying experience through you. On the back office side, customer service is a great use case for AI, I believe. At least 70% of customer service queries are pretty straightforward. So those, do you really want people to be focusing on those, or the 30% that, really matter to the customer, and that's where probably the focus should be. And then, things like order entry, e-commerce content. I mean, there's applications all across. So, I mean, I could go and talk about AI in wholesale for like 5 hours, and we would still not run out of use cases. So there's a lot of use cases. I think it's, as a business, you need to like just figure out like what your priorities are. Are you trying to like really improve on cost? Are you trying to improve on customer experience? What the focus at the time is, and then kind of prioritize which use cases you want to go after and adopt first. But every role, I think, will change, right? And we're seeing that, we're all seeing like, how it can play a role in our everyday life. So every single role in your company can be rethought, but not everything needs to be rethought today.
I think one of the most fascinating parts about AI is just how fast it's moving.
Yeah.
Just daily changes, daily new capabilities, ChatGPT now has agentic capabilities. There's been agentic capabilities and other tools for a while.
Yeah.
Where do you see this going? Not in a year, but where do you see kind of the future in 6 months on kind of practical uses by wholesalers
Yeah.
in this?
I think, I think 6 months is a good timeline because that's something that you can still see. Because if you ask me about 5 years later, I really don't know.
Who knows?
Who really knows? Will I have a job? Will you have a job? I don't know. Like, will we all be just chilling on a beach? Um, but I think 6 months down the line, Justin, again, all of the use cases that we just spoke about, they are very, very doable, right? So, for example, uh, you look at any use case where you have a lot of manual data entry, reading of documents, PDFs. I think those use cases in general are very, very good and ripe for AI. So, we for and some could be big, some could be small, but like just order entry could be a good domain to start with because it's slowing you down. There are people just doing redundant work and nobody likes to just sit and enter data manually, right? So that's a very, very good use case and something that you can solve pretty quickly, right? It's not as complicated. You can sort of I think in 2 to 3 months of focused effort that domain you can solve pretty quickly. I think on the customer experience or customer service side, I would think that every customer service agent would be augmented with AI at least in the next 6 to 8 months. I would go as far as saying that 50 to 60% of customer service queries should not actually hit the customer service reps, right? So I think the days of ticketing system and all of that, it's all redundant now. Like you don't really need a ticketing system if you have 50-60% lesser queries on a daily basis, right? Like
True.
then you have all your time in the day to like just focus on the 10 customer inquiries, which are very important, which are more complex, where you need to
Unique,
get involved.
consultative,
Yeah.
project-based,
Yeah.
those things. Yeah.
Exactly. So every software, I think, has to become at least semi-autonomous in the next 6 to 8 months. And if it's a complete workflow software and there's no autonomy in that software, then I think it's probably not ripe for this AI era, right? So even today, like, I mean, that's what I keep challenging my team. Like anytime a customer wants something, I think the first question I now ask is like, should this process exist? Because before I digitize the process, I need to first question whether this process should exist in today's day and age or not. So you kind of have to question every process. And I think one large application across the organization is just how people leverage data. And then every department has their own needs of sort of leveraging that data. But I think one thing that AI does really well now is it allows you to talk to your data in ways that you want to and get answers to questions quickly rather than dashboards and reports and like digging through Excels. And I think that I think is very, very powerful and it has impact across your organization. So I think that is something that I would definitely invest into.
Yeah, another way people have talked about is obviously repeatable tasks, repeatable questions but also where there's there's a couple places where there's an export. If there's an export button somewhere,
Yeah.
that probably means that data needs to be used other places that AI could take its spot.
Yeah.
Where a regular email is sent about something, that's an opportunity to look at that process. You guys, I know you have raised your Series A, correct?
Yeah. Yes,
Just
correct.
recently.
Recently, yeah.
In that you talked about, you used the words AI native operating system. And I would love to hear what does that mean? What does that mean practically for the wholesale distributor?
Yeah. I think, Justin, at a core of it is, as I said, every software that you use today has to become semi-autonomous at least, if not completely autonomous, right? So if I look at the world of wholesale and we very strategically
Before you move on from that, that's a scary thing. Autonomous is scary. I don't mean like robots taking over the world, but
yeah.
it's a scary thing to turn over interactions with customers to, a computer, a bot, whatever it might be, because like the trust, how do you trust that something is doing something the right way, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that long ago. It wasn't, I mean, even within the last couple of years that you still wouldn't get a blue screen of death on Microsoft, like in the middle of an application, right?
Yeah.
That it would just blue screen and then shut off in the middle of what you're doing. I mean, that's only been a couple years where we don't see that anymore. And now we're talking about bots answering maybe questions for customers or handling something for a customer, even semi-autonomously. It's just a scary thing. Like, how do you build that? How do you build that trust for that?
I think Justin, number one, I think something that I always question people is how much are you able to track your employees, and how, I mean, you have some employees that are very good, but an average employee in a lot of these departments is really not good at their job, and they're really not delivering top-notch quality of answers, and you don't really have that much control, right? So I think when we look at AI, we suddenly want 99.99% accuracy, but when we're working with humans, we're not getting more than 80% or 75%.
That's so
So I
true.
think,
That's such a good point.
yeah, I don't know why we set such bizarre benchmarks for AI versus, like, what we have today in our companies, which is, things are happening and it's out of our control, and people are not doing their jobs well, and people are calling in sick on days they really need to be in office, and we have all those practical things that happen to us every day.
People are semi-autonomous. Just
Yeah.
just
I think
realized what you were saying. People are semi-autonomous, just like, and maybe they should be less autonomous than they are. It's such a good point. I interrupted you though. You were kind of moving on from semi-autonomous to talk
Yeah.
about the AI native operating system.
Yeah. No, I think when Elon Musk keeps questioning, right, like, self-driving cars will cause lesser accidents, but, our bar for self-driving cars is like, hey, it can never cause any accident, versus a human driver can be drunk driving, and, shit happens all the time. I think it's the same concept, but with a lot less intensity in our companies, and I think that framework is just very important to have. Like, just look at what the real situation today is, and whether AI improves it, versus trying to go for complete utter perfection, because you're not going to get that, and then the advantages of today you're going to completely miss out. You'll wait for like 5 years for it to become perfect. By that time it's already too late. Everybody else has moved on, and they perfected that system over time. But yeah, coming back to sort of AI native operating system, I think we're trying, at the core of what we're trying to do, Justin, is we're trying to build a OS for wholesale, trying to build one software which encompasses all your customer touch points. So be it e-commerce, like, self-ordering for customers, enabling sales reps with the right tools for them to like hone in on that relationship, increase their sales, their outputs, and then tools for back, and connecting all of this to the back office, and really integrating well with the ERP. But now if you look at all of these tools, all of these need to become semi-autonomous, as I was saying. So a sales rep, if they're doing, a typical sales rep is only spending 50 I would say even less than 50. Like, I think when I talk to sales reps, they're spending like not more than 25% of their time selling. 75% of their time is administrative tasks, it's customer support queries, it's entering data into systems manually, it's, coordinating with teams to get data. So I think when I look at the sales rep experience from an AI native standpoint and WizCommerce standpoint, I'm saying, can I remove that 75%? Can I at least can I give a sales rep at least 50% more time to actually focus on selling and make them smarter, and take away all these redundant processes from them. Make it easy for them to access data, make intelligent recommendations, become like a proactive assistant for them essentially. On the website as well, I think it's similar in the way that discovery experience for customers need to be very autonomous. Like, nobody should have to sit and look at like a 10,000 product catalog to find what they're looking for. Can I make that discovery experience very easy? Can I make it very easy for them to get answers to the questions they need, and just cut like multiple steps from their buying journey? So that's what AI native kind of means on the storefront.
Makes a lot of sense. I want to talk about kind of where you're going to invest in for your Series A. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about WizCommerce as a company and what you're focused on right now. Like when you talk about wholesale distribution, do you have further niches from that?
Yeah.
I mean, talk a little bit about the company itself.
Yeah. Justin, we started about three years back. I think where we started from was really focusing on the sales rep experience and saying like, hey, how do we make a sales rep a 10x rep, essentially. And then our customers pulled us in all sorts of direction, but I think it became clear that, a connected ecosystem is what people really want. So today we have a app, we have a AI for CRM plus ordering app for sales reps. We have a full e-commerce site of our business where we help customers launch e-commerce experiences. And both of these are connected to each other. So one of the key things that we saw was people go for e-commerce and then reps feel like, we're being cut out. I don't have no idea what's happening on the website, which of my customers are ordering, and people, and that is a disjointed experience. And when you even speak to the end buyer, they will tell you that buying from the website feels like a different company, buying from the rep feels like a different company. So we kind of I think we saw an opportunity in unifying that entire tech stack. So, reps know which customers are actively browsing, which customers should I focus on, who's struggling to complete their purchase. And for the customer, they can see activity across both interaction points, no matter where they're interacting, right? So that's what we do today. And on the AI front, of course, on both these platforms, there's several AI capabilities that we have built. Along with that, as I said, we started seeing a lot of talent gaps. So we kind of delved into areas where we felt like customers were really struggling. So e-com content was a big part of it, which means like, generating product descriptions, generating all the content that you need for e-commerce, but also cleaning up your images, making lifestyle images, which are important in certain categories. So we have a product called Vistudio now, which is basically does all of this for you. Like it completes your journey from the warehouse to actually getting the product live on a website and cuts it down by 90%. So you can literally start from a picture in your factory and get that picture cleaned up, enhanced, put into lifestyle shots, and get that live on a website in a matter of few clicks. So that's the current set of tools. Of course, the investment of Series A we are very excited about, and I think one of our goals over the next 6 months is to build a AI agent marketplace for wholesalers, right? So you think of it like, a directory of 20, 30 AI employees that you can just go and start using on your everyday and just embed in your everyday workflow. And, that's really what we're trying to do. So you go on this platform, you say like, okay, this is the problem I want to solve. There's an AI agent for that. And so we have a roadmap over the next 6 to 8 months to start.
I love that. I think that's brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. It's like a Indeed for AI agents.
Exactly. And fully
and
trained.
Plugging into your different systems and stuff like that. That's pretty brilliant.
Yeah. I think you asked another question about sort of which niches. So I think overall, from a size of the company perspective, we are focused on SMB and mid-market. So companies anywhere from like a few $1 million in annual turnover to or like 10, 15 employees to I think our larger customers are hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and maybe 100, 200, 300 people teams. And in terms of categories, I think we really started from more lifestyle categories. So home decor, lighting, gift, those were sort of the initial categories where we have had a lot of success and then started venturing out into, we do have a lot of customers selling general merchandise, food distribution now. And I think one of the parts of fundraise is to start bringing our platform to other categories like industrial distribution, etc., where we've not really made inroad, like we've not really started focusing yet, but that's a big part of this fundraise is to start getting into other categories of distribution.
Building up your go-to-market team and things like that. Amazing. So I'm curious, what type of companies then do you suggest give you a call, or even better question is what types of problems, challenges, questions, observations would have someone kind of trigger them to reach out to you guys and start a conversation?
Yeah, I think Justin, I think if you're a wholesaler or a distributor, and I think if you're struggling with sort of the problems that I spoke about, like, sales rep productivity, a lot of manual order entry, poor experience for the customers, because a lot of people do struggle with e-commerce even today. None of the tools out there are actually built for distribution. So, I mean, it's a semi-functioning website. My customers can't see invoices. Like, there's just plenty of problems on the website front that people have. If you're facing with those kinds of issues, I think you should give us a call. And I think one of the big things that we solved, Justin, in the first year of our company was we realized that all of this really works only if we can connect to the back office systems really well. And nobody really wants to focus on the dirty work there, right? Like, nobody wants to sit and try to connect to a Sage 100 system, which was, I don't know when it was built, but it's pretty archaic.
1964.
1964. And IBM AS4, you still see IBM AS400. And
All the time.
I'm always surprised about that one.
It's always attached to the fax machine.
But we do connect to all those systems. So we actually have a full-fledged services team in-house. So not outsourced. We don't send you to a third party. We already have connectors with a lot of these legacy systems. Like for smaller customers, it could be a QuickBooks Desktop, Sage 100, Sage 50. And as you sort of grow up in the chain, like some of my bigger customers still use IBM AS400. So no matter what type of integration, we either have a team who will do custom for you, otherwise we will have at least a foundation across the top 8-10 ERPs. And because we're able to do that, we're actually able to deploy AI really well across these strategic places, because we do have the intelligence and the data to make that happen, right? So I think I would definitely mention that, because I feel like half of the projects get stalled, or companies go down a path and they really struggle is to get this integration in place. But that's something that we know we solved really well. We've spent a year on literally just nailing that down, and we have a full-fledged team, just experts in making ERP integrations happen.
I think a lot of people think, legacy ERPs like that are kind of insane. But I was in AutoZone a couple weeks ago, and he was tabbing back and forth. The POS is still green screen. Use the tab button and the enter button to get through fields. That tab button's well worn out. They have to have the plastic over top of the keys because they use it so much. Yeah. And then they were alt tabbing between their kind of internet applications. So they were kind of looking up products on one and then putting in the POS inside the green screen. And then when you got your printout, it was basically a dot matrix, printout that you got. So yeah. It's not actually, it's actually more normal than people understand about that. I'm curious.
That's the norm, actually. I think the most really modern system I look at is NetSuite. But to an outside person, if you talk about NetSuite, it's actually a legacy system. So yeah, if I talk to a friend of mine from the Valley, they'll be like, NetSuite is such a legacy system. And I'm like, okay, that's the most modern we actually come across. So you really don't know what legacy is unless you've sat across a screen and watched somebody operate IBM AS400.
I would love to wrap up by asking this question: how do companies prepare, or what are some of the first steps if a company is wanting to go down this AI path, wanting to look at some of their manual processes outside of calling WizCommerce, which is a good idea, but outside of calling you guys, what do you suggest as some kind of first steps for companies to go through?
I think first step, Justin, would be just to prioritize, right? Like, as I said, it's a very broad application. It's like the internet, right? So you could do many things when cloud first came about, but you don't want to spread yourself too thin, and you also want to get some early wins in your organization so that people start adopting it, taking it seriously, and it becomes like a conversation that people are excited about in every department. So I think what you need to do is get that first early win, really. If you're an IT person who's trying to really push AI, find that one department, one problem to solve really well with it. Because once you do that, then you have a seat at the table. Every department sort of will want to adopt it, because it is going to have an impact on every single department in your company. So I think what I suggest, and we actually have, I have a framework, and I'm happy to sort of share it with you and the audience, is how do you sort of pick what problems to solve? So one of the frameworks there is just in what I mentioned, like frequency of use and the cost of an error, right? So pick problems which are high frequency, but the cost of an error is low, so that you can live with. If something goes wrong, you can live with it. It's not going to shut down your business. It's not going to, cause you millions of dollars in sort of revenue loss. So I think that's a good framework to pick up.
I like that.
Sort of pick problems, and very simple framework. Like you can very easily do it. I'm not giving you like a very complex, like McKinsey level framework.
Yeah, it feels like a matrix of kind of
It's a 2x2, like
cost and effort. Yeah.
plot it across. And then once you have that, then you can sort of go to another 2x2, which is, where is this impacting? Is it going to impact my cost center? Is it going to impact my revenue center? And how much impact do you see from this optimization? But I would say like look at ease of deployment, right? Don't pick problems. Like I could today go to a wholesaler and say like, hey, why don't you replace your entire customer service team and we'll deploy an AI agent to do that. But I wouldn't do that, because that's a very, very complex problem to solve. It will take you a long time to solve it and to see results. And there's a lot of failure points, and you've really never deployed AI before. So I would pick problems which are easy, high frequency and easy to deploy, and you can live with an error. Essentially, that's my broad framework for people.
Yeah, let's definitely include that on the post that we make for this. I'd love to include that framework here. I think that's a great tool for people to be able to visualize and use.
Yeah.
Div, how do people get a hold of you? How do you want people to reach out to you and Wiz in this process?
Yeah, we have a link on our website, Justin. So if anybody wants to talk to us, they can book a demo. I'm on div@wizcommerce.com, and I'll share my credentials with you. So if anybody wants to reach out directly to me, they can do that. But yeah, we're very excited about wholesale distribution AI. I think that's our wheelhouse. So even if you don't have something directly applicable to you and you just want to chat about just how you want to use AI, how do we prioritize problem, we are happy to do that as well. So we do actually a 30-minute and sometimes an hour of like free consultation, because we also want to hear what people are thinking about. So it's always a good learning experience for us. And we're always looking for early partners on new capabilities.
Amazing. Thanks for coming on, Div. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Justin. Thanks for having me.
Manufacturers, distributors, leaders in the zone. If you're building B2B, this the podcast throne. The industry's heartbeat, we're setting the tone. Turn insights to actions, it's how empires are grown. We're talking change management, breaking resistance. Strategies so sharp, they redefine persistence. Customer adoption, it's more than retention. It's building a movement, commanding attention. It's the B2B e-commerce show, where the vision is clear and the strategies glow. From the top of the globe, we're the pros who know. Turn the volume up loud, it's time to grow. We bring news, big topics, insights to spark. From the boardroom's glow to the warehouse dark. Digital transformations, the path we're paving. Helping you lead through the change you're facing. This is more than a podcast, it's the industry's voice. Giving you the tools to make the right choice. No fluff, just facts, no hype, just action. The show where solutions are more than a fraction. It's the B2B e-commerce show, where the vision is clear and the strategies glow. From the top of the globe, we're the pros who know. Turn the volume up loud, it's time to grow.
This is your guide to the digital race. Practical advice, no time to waste. So tune in, gear up, and let's own the space. It's the B2B e-commerce show, the industry's base. The industry's base. The industry's base.